This video is going to show us two things. One, how to plan to teach K.7 poetry in kinder, but also how to follow this process whenever we are planning for any other TEK, so that we understand how important it is to first understand the TEK, understand the wording of the TEK, and then looking for resources and activities to teach the TEK. Let's start by looking at the TEK, the way it looks in your TEK cards. You notice we have some letters with big words, and that means that they are pointing at the student expectation. Let us refresh our memory and remember that TEK is going to have three parts: the strand, the knowledge statement, and then the student expectation. The strand is poetry, well, reading comprehension of literary text poetry. Then the knowledge statement, students understand, make inferences, and draw conclusions about the structures and elements of poetry, and provide evidence from text to support their understanding. Well, this is a very complicated knowledge statement, and it actually goes all the way from kinder to 5th grade. Therefore, we really need to focus our attention on the student expectation. The student expectation is the students will respond to rhythm and rhyme in poetry through identifying a regular beat and similarities in words and sounds. Notice that I'm circling in red the verbs respond and identifying, and I'm circling and underlining important terms such as rhythm, rhyme, regular beat, similarities, words and sounds. That means that I need to start by defining the verbs, and the tool that I will be using to define the verbs will be the document that you have in your Google Drive inside your grade level folder, the Kelgo verb definitions. And I then find out that the first definition is for the verb respond. And to respond means to reply or answer in words. Now, to me, that means that since we are dealing with kinder, to respond could also mean that students are going to respond by doing actions. To identify means to recognize or establish as being a particular thing. That means that I still need to put that in words that I understand. To me, what identify means is that students need to know some elements of poetry and be able to find examples of those elements in the poems that are read to them. Once I have an idea what the verbs are, what they mean, I need to still look at important terms within the TEK. In this case, my resource would be to go to Engrade and look at the TEK specificity to get ideas. The first thing that I notice on Engrade is that they have a definition for rhythm and a definition for rhyme. But those definitions are still loaded with a lot of terms. So let's go one by one. Rhythm is defined as the pattern of beats or stresses in a line of poetry, conveying a sense of movement or sound. Rhyme is defined as a matching of sounds of syllables at the ends of lines of verse. Since there are so many terms and definitions here, we have to really go one by one. Going to Engrade, we notice that they give us an example for rhythm, and they actually put a song in there that if you're good at singing you can sing, not me. But since it is a song, that kind of tells me that I need to go and see what else I need to find out about songs and rhythm. I go to Google and I find some important information about rhythm and songs. My search shows that rhythm is linked to music. Songs are poems that can be sung. And then I find out that children love music because through children can express their emotions, release energy and channel it, realize they can use their minds and bodies together, learn new words and ideas, learn about themselves and the world around them. Since rhythm is linked to music, and the text is asking students to respond to rhythm, then we can say that we can use clapping to show students how to respond to rhythm in the poems that we read aloud. We can teach students to clap whenever there is a stressed syllable or stressed word, or we can find a pattern that the poem follows and teach students to follow along by clapping to the stressed syllables or the stressed words. It would be a very good idea to contrast poetry to prose, and this is going to help students identify that poems have rhythm, but prose, such as read alouds that you do on a regular basis, do not have a regular beat. And this would emphasize that poem or songs have a rhythm. On Engrade, the specificity for rhythm mentions that it conveys a sense of movement. So, in addition to clapping, students can also respond to poetry or songs by dancing, singing, repeating, memorizing, doing the actions of the poem or song, using voice inflections, and a few more. For example, on the poem or song, clean up, students can respond by singing while doing the action of the song or the poem. The point here is that we need to be very intentional when we're using a poem or a song in order to help students identify the element of rhythm and the response that that rhythm elicits. For instance, some poems have a slow, soothing rhythm, while others elicit a lot of motion or dancing. Some poems, like Twinkle Twinkle, can be acted out through a series of patterned bodily movements that go along with the poem. But again, the point is that we're not just supposed to read a poem or sing the song. We have to teach the students that those poems or songs have a rhythm and that we can actually respond to that rhythm. Next would be how to identify and respond to rhyme. Going back to Engrade, Engrade gives us the following definition. Rhyme is the matching of sounds of syllables at the end of lines of verse. They give us an example. The itsy bitsy spider went up the water spout, down came the rain and washed the spider out, and so on and so forth. One crucial teaching consideration at this point is that in order for students to identify rhyme, teachers must first teach the following terms within the definition of rhyme: verse, line, syllable, or at least the last sound of a word. Students are not ready to break a word into syllables. end of a line, match or similar, and then sound. All of these terms require direct teaching and assessing to determine that students understood them. Now I went ahead and looked at the spiraling document and the TEK analysis document that are in your grade level folder. And as you can see, those are essential terms the students need to be able to identify in poetry. Bottom line, as you read poems, you need to be teaching students to identify what a line is, what the last word in a line is, which of the last words sounds like blank. And of course, they need to know what similar means. Okay, so how do students respond to rhyme? A few ideas that come to my mind is that students can respond to rhyme by shouting the words that sound alike at the end of the lines. I like the idea that they use on Engrade of putting or highlighting the words that rhyme in bold type that calls student attention to the words that sound alike. It's a very good visual. Students can also complete the missing rhyme. You give them a list of 2 or 3 options of words that they need to select one that rhymes like a certain line. Students can also match the lines that rhyme. You can actually go into having students distinguish between prose and poems by using their knowledge of rhymes. At this point, it's time to start being creative and having fun teaching poetry once we have understood the TEK and all of its important terms.